So Arbiter of Zir is going to be the hardest material we have seen in Diablo 4, but is your build ready? So the very first thing on this list, and it might seem obvious to most, but I just want to make sure it's very clear and why it's so important. The first thing is to be level 100. I know you're saying, Joel, but that's obvious. Of course, I need to be level 100. The reason is that I think some people will be able to do some of the Abattoir of Zir before they hit that, but you want all of those Paragon points, not only because you can max out your Paragon board, and get as much power as you possibly can before you're going into that. But because the special glyph they're giving us, we're definitely going to want to be able to maximize as many points into making that super powerful as we can. So in that, you're going to have to come back to your Paragon board and figure out what board works with that glyph best and what are you going to give up, because you're going to want as many points as you can to not have to give up too much. That's why we want the full level. But you are going to have to make that decision. So start thinking about that now. But that's the first check. Make sure you're level 100 and you got all those points. Okay, so the next part is kind of in play with the same thing. We're going to be looking at the Paragon board. And what we want is a lot of people come in and by the time they've run all the Nightmare dungeons to get their level 100, they're kind of burnt out. And so they know they've got to level these glyphs and they generally take them to level 15, which gives you that extra radius. So allows you to really stack these up and make them extremely powerful because you have those extra nodes to charge them with. Now, the difference between 15 and 21 is incredibly significant. I know it's a little rough. You might run almost as many Nightmare dungeons to get those glyphs all the way to level 21 as you did to get to level 100. But it is important to do that. They do add up really fast. And especially if you're stacking all of them, it's going to make a huge difference to your build. So you're going to want to check at least 15, at least have that extra radius, so you can pipe in those extra bonus points based on nodes you choose, but really push towards that 21. That's going to give you way more power to do what you really want to do when you hit Abattoir of Zir. Okay, so for number 3, we want to make sure that we're maximizing our gear. Well, what do I mean by that? So the first thing to check is you want to look at these and make sure that you are hitting that 925. The 925, the max item level, basically gives you a higher range for any of the stats to sit on. So the intelligence, the life on kill, whatever it is. So that is going to give you the ability to roll some of the best rolls that you can on any of the given stats. Next, you want to make sure those stats actually matter. You know, getting the higher range because you get a 925, but it's a shit stat, like increasing the effect of a shrine because everybody loves that one, or getting additional resistance you just don't need because you're already maxed out hopefully from your Paragon board if you've done it right. You want to look at, do your pieces actually have stats that help your build? If they do not, you know, especially if you see where you have maybe you have 4 and 1 doesn't work, if you haven't done any enchantments, great, you can re-roll that one. But if you have 2 or 3 going on in there, then that is going to be a piece that you really do need to replace as soon as you can. Now, it's not always possible. I've been looking like crazy to get perfect affixes on my pieces, so the stats that I want on each of my pieces, like this one, I still haven't been able to get something over 900 because the stats that are on this are something I really like, even though one of them is something I don't give a crap about. So the first 3, the all stats, the intelligence, the attack power, is definitely what I want. And I also got a max on the attack power and on the all stats. So this is pretty clean. I don't really want to switch this out. So until I get something that has something similar to those stats or something even better, and has 4 of them, then I really can't do anything. So it does happen. The other thing, if you look at I have not got a perfect roll of this. As many drops as I've seen of the gravitational for my Ball of Lightning Sorceress, I have not got a perfect 25% ever. And so this is still running, and the aspect at the bottom is only running 23%. So that's another stat that you want to make sure that you're maximizing. So if you get those, you go through your pieces and you're at least pushing most, if not all. So all the other ones are over 900, even my uniques, then you are going to have the best chance at making sure your gear is actually tip top and is adding a lot of power to your build, not just kind of a couple stats are working and a couple are not, because it does make a huge difference if everything on the stats that you're rolling really make a major difference and impact on your damage or defense. You're going to really want that for Abattoir of Zir. Now, the next thing that you're going to want to pay attention to is this is kind of a test. So once you've done the pieces that we've talked about so far, you now want to run and see if your build is ready. There is so much complexity in the builds. There is so much wide range for what your build could be, what you're doing in Paragon points, what you're doing in your skill tree, that even someone at level 100 with perfect gear, with affixes on the gear that actually helps, doesn't guarantee that your build is the strongest it could be or is going to be ready for Abattoir of Zir. So how do we check that? Well, the obvious thing, if Abattoir of Zir is going to be the hardest material in the game, then it's probably best to make sure that you can cover the currently hard material in the game. So that is, are you clearing Nightmare Dungeon 100? Have you done it at all? Have you taken down Lilith? Lilith is a little bit of a question because there's more like the timing and mechanics on it. But I think it's a good place to see. If your build can do these two things, that you have covered some of the greatest and most difficult material. Now, Uber Duro could also be on the list, but if you're taking down Lilith, Uber Duro was not that bad. So just make sure that you can actually do those. Now, it doesn't mean that you're always going to drop. So maybe you're checking this really quick as you want to like jump into Abattoir of Zir. You might not be able to roll and get the glyph that's 100 right away because you'll get that range from 90 to 1 or 91 to 100. And so what I do, if you are blitzing through like 90, early 90s, and you're not getting one shot at all the time, or you're not dying at all, and you're just kind of, you don't feel like you're like carefully going through the material, you probably are very ready for level 100. And so that'll help you know that even if you can't consistently drop 100s. Because the other thing is like, well, not all T100s are built the same. So you may want to get a bunch of runs in that 90 plus anyway to tell if your build is really ready for all the different types of monsters, the different afflictions that they're going to put on you, and anything else that could actually come into your way. Are you doing that very, very well consistently? So being able to run a bunch in the 90 plus range will tell you that. Okay, so we are finally at the last of the 5. And this one is a little bit different than the rest because it's not just a good thing to check. It's an absolute requirement. You cannot play Abattoir of Zir if you have not done this yet. What we're going to look at is we're going to jump over here into Season. And you probably been playing with this and picking up the items, but Season's Journey, if you haven't been paying attention to that, other than like when you had to do it for the storyline, completing this all the way through is going to be a requirement. If you didn't finish this last one here, the Destroyer, then you are going to have to make sure you do that, or you will not get to play Abattoir of Zir. The game just won't let you. So what you're looking at is, as usual for these, you don't have to complete them all, but you got to do 7 of 9. And so here we got the Purified Seeds of Hatred in a hostile area, 22,222. I haven't done that one. I just don't do a lot of PvP. Didn't really care. Reached the reputation level for Blood Harvest. As soon as I got to kind of World Tier 4, I wasn't doing as much Blood Harvest unless I needed to, but I had everything, all my vampiric powers leveled out, so that was good. But then we got Defeat Duriel. You have to do it, I think that's twice. Yeah, that's twice you have to do that. Loot Master, so how many times have you actually opened Tortured Chest gifts inside Hell Tides? That's requiring 10 of those. Then World Bosses, you have to be part of taking down 12 World Bosses. Avatar of Sanctuary Might. The Avatar of Sanctuary's Might. So this is equip at least 8 ancestral uniques. So when you start doing a lot of bossing, you do get a lot of uniques. This doesn't require you to make them a viable build. They just have to be put on at some point. So as soon as you have 8 separate pieces you can throw on, just put them on and you can take it off, put your build right back on. So that's all I did. That was pretty easy to complete. You have the tier 90. Obviously we already talked about doing tier 100. So tier 90, if you can at least do that, if you're running through tier 90 pretty easily, tier 100 is probably in the bag. But you do want to complete that. The Paragon Glyphs, like at least get 5 to level 21. That was a pain. And then defeat Uber Lilith. So just kind of pick what works for you. I mean, they're all doable. This would have been easy enough to do. And I ran over. I did the first one. There was another one that required that. So it's not hard to do, but just make sure you pick the 7 that are easiest for you to do and make sure those are checked off so you can actually jump into Abattoir of Zir as soon as it's available. Okay, so we are at the 5. And as I promised, I wanted to give you something that you could do. If these didn't check off, these weren't like easy or total grand slams, your build isn't quite ready, I do have a couple main tips that can help you get it there. The very first one, and this may be controversial to some people, you may like the puzzle of checking out the skills and building it and solving what would actually work together. And it's very enjoyable. And so you do a lot of that solo and you don't actually look at build guides. Now, I'm not saying to do build guides, not to follow someone else's build entirely, but there's a place, if you're okay with that, that's great. Because for me, a lot of times the builds can be very enjoyable to do, but I kind of switch up. I'm playing so much of this game. Sometimes I do no build and sometimes I do just follow the build straight. And then I figure it out later in endgame what I want to tweak on it. But what I recommend for anybody that you learn your build better, whatever build you're playing, if you're playing Druid, if you're playing that class, go check out a lot of the builds. Just go look at the build guides, not to copy them necessarily, but to know what are they commonly using. What aspects work really well? What do you see keep coming up for stats that you want on your gear? Doing that can actually help you get there very fast because you're kind of standing on the shoulders of the entire community and everything they've done. Because those guys didn't just figure it out on their own. They're very active in a community of people that are constantly testing and tweaking and checking and running numbers and building spreadsheets. There's a lot of work that goes into it. And so for you to have the best chance at some of the, the really great builds in this game, it is important, I think, that you check those out. Just find it. Even if it's just like research to know, hey, that's what I could also do with my build. I'm going to check that out. It also helps a lot with what uniques that you need, or even possibly uber uniques that might be worth it for your build to go after, because you get a lot of references on what those are. And so that leads me to my second piece. The most valuable thing you can do to get more power in endgame, once you've kind of done the base stuff that we talked about here and getting to level 100, the gearing part is going to come down to doing a lot of bossing. And the reason the bossing is so cool is not only are they dropping uniques, even the bosses that you have to fight Duriel, they drop a lot of uniques. It's the highest chance of dropping uniques. I saw almost no uniques drop in Nightmare Dungeons. I don't know if it's everybody's experience, but I've taken now 2 classes all the way 100, and another one's coming up in World Tier 4 right now. And I have seen maybe 10 uniques out of, I can't even imagine how many Nightmare Dungeons I've done at this point. So the best place is going to be is to get this from the bosses. The bosses also have a chance to drop rares or legendaries that are at that 925. So you get the skill, the item level that you really need. And I've gotten to the point where I'm so focused on getting those 925 that allows me to kind of ignore all the other rares, unless I'm just breaking them down for parts, for the most part, unless they're over 900, because I know I'm going to go do a ton of bossing to get that chance at the uber uniques and the 925 items across the board. Duriel drops all 925s, and you'll see the same from world bosses, that they will drop rares and legendaries at 925. So you can get high item powers, and then you just check for those aspects, and you also have all those chances at the uniques themselves. So that'll help you a ton. Now, if you're even behind that and you're still kind of scaling, trying to get that level or trying to level those glyphs, make sure you check out this video where I go over what I wish I would have known about Nightmare Dungeons after thousands of runs, because that will help you cut through some of the bullshit that I made mistakes on over and over again and get through it fast.